So have you ever been in a relationship that you knew just wasn't good for you, but for some reason you just found it so hard to walk away? So maybe they've hurt you, maybe they've lied to you, the relationship has just been so draining, but the moment that they came back to you or gave you just a little bit of love, you just found it so hard to let go. So if you've ever felt addicted to someone that was hurting you, there's a reason for that. And it's not actually weakness. It's because a toxic relationship can literally create an emotional addiction in your brain. So in today's video, I'm going to be explaining why that addiction actually happens and why breaking free from that addiction can be so difficult. So if you're new here, my name's Rita and welcome to Empowered Love Within. On this channel, it's all about helping you create the abundance that you want, but from within. So if you like that type of content, hit the subscribe button and check out the description box for my offers. So let's get into today's video. When it comes to toxic relationships, the hard thing about them is that they can actually be a double-edged sword. So it's like the same person who's actually creating all the pain and hurt towards you is actually the same person that also is comforting you. So in reality, a toxic relationship doesn't actually feel like love. It feels more like survival. We use this term toxic relationships quite a lot, but what does it actually mean? So for me, what a toxic relationship means is one where there's different levels of abuse, whether that's physical, whether that's emotional, or whether there's just elements of neglect. That's how I would describe a toxic relationship. And one of the key things about a toxic relationship is it's never always bad. And I think that's the hard part about a toxic relationship. There's often moments of joy, happiness, mind-blowing intimacy, stretches where you have fun, you think you're good together. But then on the flip side of that, you have the negativity. And in those moments of extreme negativity, because they're then later reinforced by that positive behavior, that's what keeps you hooked in that situation. And that's why it's so hard to get out of them. So now, let's get into why a toxic relationship is so addictive. So the first reason why a toxic relationship is so addictive is trauma bonding. So basically, trauma bonding is where you as the person who's on the receiving end of this toxic behavior develop some kind of deep loyalty to the person who's showing you that behavior. So you have like a real unhealthy emotional attachment to that person. So it's that intermittent behavior where you've got that negative behavior and then you've also got the positive to counteract that. So that cycle of abuse almost creates an addiction. It's like the good moments create dopamine in the body, which creates an element of happiness or a feel-good kind of emotion, followed by the negative behavior, which releases cortisol into the body, where you then feel sad and down and gloomy, etc. And those highs and lows actually lead to you developing an unhealthy emotional attachment with the person who's putting that behavior onto you. And if you're wondering to yourself, am I exhibiting signs of having a trauma bond? These are some of the things that will probably happen if you do have a trauma bond. You'll probably be excusing your partner's poor behavior. You'll probably most likely feel that you just cannot leave, even though you know you should and you actually want to. You just cannot physically do it. And you'll probably more than likely find out that you have moments where you're just obsessing over those good times, and that's what you're mainly fixated on, as opposed to the bad times, which can give you some really low moments. So the second reason why toxic relationships feel addictive is back to this dopamine cycle. So as I've mentioned, when you're in this situation where you have these really high highs and these really low lows, in the high moments, you're actually releasing dopamine, the feel-good chemical, into your body. And when you're in those moments of fear or extreme stress, you're then releasing cortisol, which is the stress hormone. And believe it or not, this pattern can become so addictive to the body. is actually very similar to the kind of thing that people experience when they have other addictions. So for example, people who are addicted to substances or gambling, it's the same type of impact that it has on the body. And if you're thinking to yourself, I wonder if I'm trapped within that dopamine cycle, these are some of the signs that will probably tell you that you are. So if you think about what a healthy relationship might look like where there's no drama, and in your mind you think, God, that must be one heck of a boring relationship, you're probably trapped within this dopamine cycle, because that type of relationship to you wouldn't give you those really high dopamine spikes and those really low cortisol levels. So for you, that would probably feel really boring. If you're trapped within that dopamine cycle, you're probably going to be very obsessive over your partner, in terms of feeling really anxious and almost depressed if you're not in contact with each other, checking your phone constantly for messages, checking their social media to try and find out what they're doing, because at that moment you would then be in that extreme low, and when you hear from them you would jump straight back up into that extreme high. And the third reason why toxic relationships feel so addictive is actually nervous system conditioning. So one of the key roles that your nervous system wants to fulfill is to keep you safe. And as far as your nervous system is concerned, safe equals familiarity. If your nervous system feels a particular condition which feels familiar to it, it actually feels safe. And often the patterns that we have and the patterns that feel safe to us are often the patterns that we developed and witnessed within early childhood. And if you were in an environment where you witnessed toxic relationships, or toxic relationships were the norm, your nervous system more than likely feels that that type of behavior is the norm, and it wants to get you to that point to give you that safety that you're used to, as much as that particular behavior in reality is causing you harm. For your nervous system, it feels safe because remember what I said, safety equals familiarity. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, that's interesting, I wonder if my nervous system is deregulated. Some of the symptoms that you'll probably see is feeling overly anxious and restless. So there's a certain level of hypervigilance there. Also, more than likely, you know that that toxic relationship is bad for you, but you just cannot seem to get out of it no matter how much you try. So having a better understanding as to why toxic relationships are so addictive is the first step to you being able to break free from that pattern. So in actual fact, awareness is the first step to breaking free from a toxic relationship. Now, if you want me to do another video on how you can break free from a trauma bond or a toxic relationship, comment below the words break free, and I will make another video giving you the exact steps that you need to break free from a toxic relationship. So go on, do it now. If you found this video valuable, hit the like button. Also subscribe if you like this type of content, and check out the description box to learn more about my offers. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.